Two common transitions that you're probably familiar with are dip to white and dip to black. But that got me thinking, what are some other creative ways that I could approach a transition like this, but make it more stylized? And here are some of the results that I came up with. In that edit, I found 4 different ways to stylize the traditional dip to white or dip to black transition. Let me show you how I did it. In the project bin, I'm gonna go down to this new item icon and create an adjustment layer. Bring the adjustment layer down to the timeline and place it above the 2 clips where you want the transition to happen. Right click, change the speed duration to 20 frames. It could really be anything here, but I'm gonna use 20 frames. Hit OK. Gonna center it between the 2 clips. And for this example, I've just repeated the same clips on my timeline 4 different times so I can show you the different options that I've come up with. And to create these transitions, we're gonna go up to our effects panel and start looking up some effects to apply to these adjustment layers. The first one I'm going to do is called Threshold. Underneath Obsolete, I know it's obsolete, still think it looks cool, so I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna click and drag Threshold onto my first layer. The next one I wanna try is underneath Video Effects, Color Correction, Brightness and Contrast. And while we're here, I'm also going to take the tint and put that onto a 3rd adjustment layer. And one last one to try is Color Emboss. So that's underneath Stylize. And that will be my last one. So let's start with Threshold. What we're going to do is animate the level. So I'm going to click Toggle Animation right here in the middle, and that will create a keyframe in the middle. But I also want to move the playhead to the beginning, create a keyframe by hitting Add Remove, and then also move the playhead to the very end of the adjustment layer and create one last keyframe. One helpful tip for navigating between your keyframes are these 2 arrows right here. If you want to go to Previous or Next, you just click them and it will take you directly to that keyframe. For most of these, we're only going to be adjusting the middle keyframe. And so you can see what's going on. I'm going to hit the little down arrow right here. If you want to dip to white, you would take this negative, but -7 is a little too intense. So maybe we'll back it off just a little bit right here. So it has a kind of hold Command on Mac or Control on Windows, create a keyframe for your opacity and create one more while still holding Command and kind of fade it out. So as it comes, it could fade into, and maybe we could fade this up if we wanted to. So that's pretty gnarly. Let's move on to another version right here, which I dragged on Brightness and Contrast. Same concept. Create 2 keyframes in the middle and create 2 more sets of keyframes on the beginning and ending so it starts and ends at its default setting. Our middle one is where we're gonna go as crazy as possible, all the way to the extreme on 100 for both the brightness and the contrast. And this is another kind of dip to white or flare, boom. Pretty cool effect. Another one is Tint. And this is one where you could basically just go to grayscale or black and white, but I want to make this a little bit more interesting and go inverted. And what I mean by that is it will kind of look like night vision. So if I click the turn on my toggle animation in the middle of the adjustment layer and completely flip flop what these are doing. Map black to, I'm going to click this and go all the way to white. Map white to, click that. And instead of mapping my white to white, I'm going to map it to black. Boom. Now we have a kind of night vision effect going on, and I want to bring this into the tint. So maybe I'll click right here and go to 100, then have it fade out back to normal. So this will be 0, this will be 0, and it kind of has an effect like this. Bam. That's pretty cool. You could take this a step further by maybe, instead of mapping your whites to black, this is where you could bring in some color. So let's say we wanted to do purple for some odd reason. Wham. And it goes back to normal. The possibilities are kind of endless here. So instead of mapping your blacks to whites, we could do something complementary to this purple like green. Whoa. So wham. There's a dip too. It's like a neon matrix looking transition. Wham. That's pretty cool, right? And the last one that I want to show you is Color Emboss. The ones that we're going to be affecting here are contrast and relief. Again, make them default on the beginning and ending so that when you hit the middle, it's at an extreme. The one that you'll really see a difference here is when you start doing relief. Kind of looks like an echo effect. If you take contrast down to 0, notice that you don't see any difference here, but if you go up, you get some extreme things going on. I'm just gonna go up to 1,000. So it starts at 100, goes up to 1,000, and then back to 100. That's a neat little effect too. One more interesting thing about the edit at the beginning of this video is that it only took me a couple minutes to make. I'm utilizing the same techniques that I already taught you, but in this case, I chopped up the footage and just applied the presets from my preset pack. Let me show you. Different from before, we're not gonna be using adjustment layers. All I would need to do is go to my effects panel. Underneath presets, here's my transition pack, and I have a color dips folder. These are labeled by A and B. So A will go on the first clip and B will go on the second clip. So if I click and drag this dip to white stylized onto the first clip right here, click and drag the dip to white stylized B on the second clip, and immediately we have that stylized dip to white on the transition. And these 3 other presets in this folder are the same effects that I've already shown you. But if you want to check out my preset pack, I'll put a link in the description. If you're interested on how to do other effects from my preset pack, I have a playlist showcasing to you or tutorializing how to do them right here. And until next time, my name's Javier Mercedes, and I hope you're out there living a life of abundance. Bye.